Hello, good people. I see you guys coming already. Share this stream. Please share this stream. Share this stream with friends. Share it on groups. Share it far and wide, because today's topic, Denga, hi, how are you? I can see you already. We are within. That's great. Prepare all your questions. We've got a panel and a half today, and I am promising you fireworks. Good people, share the stream high and wide as far as we can, because today is just something else. I'm super excited, and I guess you can already see Pakari inside. That's Godfrey. Thank you very much. Please let us know who you are. Let us know where you're watching from. Of course, this is Young Aspirations, and we are here for you. Lobola is the subject today, reviewed obviously in time. This thing that has been passed to us from Stone Age, generation by generation, we kept it, and today we celebrate it. Some not so much, but we are here obviously to review it, to see if it still serves purpose. What do the youth think? Oh, it's going to be amazing. Just invite someone. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from. It's very important. We want to engage with you, and keep them questions coming, because it's going to be really exciting. Whilst we are at it, allow me to obviously thank our sponsors, Biz Legal. They are the ones that are responsible for our branding. They are also the ones that make our lovely posters. You guys would have seen our lovely poster. They do an amazing job. If you are thinking of starting a company and you need to consult legal issues around legal things around starting your company, registering it, please contact them. If you want their contact details, we can obviously give those to you. So please do contact us. Obviously, Biz Legal, if I should say, is also part of Mimshek International, which is a immigration company. So they also help you guys with immigration. If you're thinking to go to another country and you want a visa, they're the people to get hold of. Really, really exciting. Okay, let's stop that. But yeah, really, really exciting. Please, let's share. Kuma, I see you. Let's share the broadcast as far as we can. Let's share it with groups. Let us share it. If there's a friend that is not yet here that you know should be here, what you should be doing is just typing their name in the comment section. I promise you, Facebook will be faithful enough to inform them, and very soon they will be with us. But whilst that is happening, I think what I should start doing right now is to start inviting our panel onto the broadcast. So let me just quickly add them. They are here with me. Let me quickly add them. There we go. Godfrey is here. And let's add Katleko. Utuma, I see him in the comment section. My brother, let me know where you at. What you should do is go to the chat that we were having within the group that we had yesterday, and just follow the link that is there, and you will land right here with us. So I am sure you'll be with us in a moment. Good people, how are you, Godfrey? How are you doing?
Hey, brother, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you so very much for honoring our invitation. I'm really excited about today. Katleko might be fixing a few things, but trust me, she will be with us in a moment. But what we should be doing right now is, oh, she is here. For some reason, we cannot see you.
No,
can you hear me at least?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you, definitely. We just need visuals.
Well, it's saying that everyone can see and hear you. So as long as everyone can see me, that's fine. You guys will be fine.
Wait, let's get confirmation. Please type it if you can see Katlego. Please just put a heart button, but also just communicate it in the comment section so that we will be able to know, because apparently we cannot see her. Can you guys see her? We hear all your questions. We have got a button, but also just communicate it in the feedback there so that we will be able. I don't know where that is coming from.
Oh, sorry, that was me.
Oh, yeah, great. Utuma is here.
We can't see. We definitely can't. Hey, Tuma! Hey, bro.
So my president, the answer is no. People cannot see you. I don't know what's happening. Maybe you can just drop and then just come back on. And whilst that is happening, maybe I should be introducing you guys to the people, because maybe they just know you from afar. Yes, please do so. So if you just drop and just come back on using the same link. Great. I'm so happy, and let me just start off by introducing the president. Has just left. You'll know why I'm calling her the president in a moment. But she has just left, and she'll be back with us in a moment. But let me just take this opportunity to introduce the panel to you guys. First of all, we have Mr. Tuma Kasikadla. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Tuma is a master's candidate in politics and international studies in the politics department at Rhodes University. His MA research is focused on penal philosophy and the criminal justice system in South Africa. Other research interests include the 100 years of Xhosa resistance against colonial invasion between late 1700 and late 1800s, as well as African international relations. Tuma finds delight in meaningful engagement that challenges our ways of thinking and doing. And of course, yes, we are honored to have you tonight on the platform. Tuma, thank you so very much for honoring our invitation.
Yes, my brother.
Great. We also have, let me just let in the president. She is back, and her video is now on. Whilst we are saying, obviously, please do continue to share the stream. We want as many people to be here so that we can have this discussion as young people and share our thoughts. We also want to know your thoughts in the comment section. Also with us here is Mr. Godfrey Kadziri. He is a student of life, content creator, recording artist, and congratulations on your recent album. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've not checked that out, please go on all platforms and check it out. It's amazing. Congrats on that. Real achievement. And a brand enthusiast. Godfrey is one of the directors of Love on a Wednesday community, affectionately known as Law Community, which runs a series called Mazrudo Monday on IG. Mazrudo Monday is set up for the celebration of love and its multiple expressions. His interests are in music, media, ministry. Godfrey loves interacting with people and strives to make a winning and lasting impression wherever he goes. My president, again, we have, last but not, definitely not the least, Ms. Katlego Mpahlele. Apologies for not getting that right on the poster. We will obviously correct that, but at least we have that right here. Katlego was born in Limpopo in a village called is that Mpahlele? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yes, she graduated with a bachelor degree in pharmacy from Rhodes University and is currently pursuing her master's in pharmaceutical chemistry. She is the 2020 SRC president of Rhodes University. That's why I'm calling her my president. and has many leadership positions throughout her time at Rhodes, such as being faculty representative, vice chairperson of USA Eastern Cape Basketball, and the SRC Sports and Societies Councillor. She is the recipient of 2 prestigious awards, which are the Rhodes Investec Top 100 Award for Leadership and Sports. She also features in the Rhodes Music Radio Station show for a health segment that seeks to promote public health. Katlego is currently the National Youth Advisory Council member for Action SA. If you don't know what Action SA is, please do Google that. They're the upcoming next party that is going to be causing waves in South Africa. So you also want to be checking that out. She is an intersectional feminist with a passion for serving her country. Katlego is a role model and inspires and inspiration for many young women. Of course, we are happy to have her on the platform. Good people, thank you so very much for honoring our invitation. I'm super excited about today, and for obvious reason. Godfrey has just typed in where you can obviously find his music. Please do look that out. Look that up. So just to start our conversation, Lobola, I think I'm just going to hit around and just start. Maybe let me start with ladies first. We'll come to you, Kuma, and we'll end with you, Godfrey. When we think about the topic Lobola, reviewed in time, obviously, what does it mean to us? Where are we coming from? Where are we going? Just in a nutshell, if we could just do a rundown of that.
Why don't you put me in the middle? I mean, there's 2
Do we do that? Okay, let's start with Godfrey then. I know he's ever ready. Then we'll come to you, Katlego, and then we'll end with Utum.
Perfect.
Okay, super. Good evening, everyone. I hope you are well and winning. So when you mentioned the topic, and I guess just to introduce what we're actually talking about, you mentioned review, the word review in time of Lobola. I think for me, the word that came about when you said that is relevance. I think right now we're looking at the relevance of Lobola. And so, there's the thing of understanding what it is, there's the thing of understanding how it works, and how relevant it is to us in our cultures, in our ethnicity, in our families, in our tribes. And so, yeah, to me, I think the first impressions just about the conversation and just my initial thoughts, it's just thinking about whether it's still relevant. And to me, I really don't think it's as relevant anymore, at least in the way that it would be carried out. I've also known that it has different meanings in different cultures. So to certain cultures, it may be still relevant, or to certain families, if we're being specific or particular. So yeah, I think even with what I know about it, it's not anything that I've actually experienced where I've been at a Lobola event, within the conversations, but I've definitely been around it where that in the room next door or in the house next door that there's Lobola happening, but I haven't been a part of it. So even in my family, I don't have any sisters that I was present at to say to I oversaw my sisters getting Lobola or anything like that. So yeah, I think we will definitely get into it a bit more, but just my initial thoughts is just that we're trying to look at the relevance of this practice. And yeah, as for me and my household.
On that note, Anders Singata, thank you very much for joining us. Great show. Also, let us know if you have not commented as yet. We just want to know who you are and where you're watching from. He says, great show, guys. Katlego, initial thoughts. Initial thoughts, and maybe yes we can, and maybe also just add, as we are starting to create this huge monster, what kind of like in what it means in your setting, in your culture, in your background, and basically the background around the subject.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Freddie, and hi everyone. I hope you're all well.
Sorry, that was me. That was me. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I hope everyone is still keeping well and safe. And thank you very much for inviting me to this very important conversation. I think it's quite relevant, as Godfrey said. And yeah, it is very relevant. And I think it's one topic that I've been engaging on with my friends, including Kuma, offline. I just never thought there'll be a time where we discuss it on a broader platform. But yeah, thank you very much for bringing us here. Um, so for me, I'm going to tell you how I viewed Lobola like before. My views have changed over time. So at first, I viewed it as a transaction only because my mom would make a reference like here and there to say, whoever is going to marry you, I want 100,000. And I'm always like, wait, for what? And also, I just don't think um, I'm worth 100K. You know, if you're going to put a price like that, I don't think I'm worth 100K. So for me, it has always been that thing of like, it seems like Lobola is sort of like a transaction. But over time, I got to understand it and to have a change of mindset. And but still, that doesn't take away the fact that people are still treating that as a transaction nowadays because of greed, you know. So
Yeah.
I've come to understand that Lobola is important for family connection, and not only family connection, but also the ancestral connection. Because now, if I'm going to be Lobola'd into a certain family, then the ancestors of that family need to recognize me, and my ancestors also need to recognize the person who's Lobolaring me. You know, so I've just made a few notes here. When I used to ask questions, you know, during the time of me trying to understand the whole, you know, concept of lobola, I had to ask questions, you know, and ask old people mainly, and they would tell me that the main point of lobola was that when men bring cows to your family, it was to show that this is how much I have, and this is how I'm going to take care of. Like, I have the capabilities to take care of your child if you allow me to marry her or to lobola her. And that was the whole point. But also now we need to take into consideration that times have changed, because back then women used to sit at home, take care of the home, and men would go out to hunt, to just find food. So it made sense that men would bring something to the wife's family to say, okay, this is what I have, or this is I'm capable, you know, of taking care of your child. And me saying that times have changed is because now we can take care of ourselves as women. We can do the same job as men can do. So now, what are you bringing to the table? Because now, like, we can almost do the same thing. So that is one important thing that I think we need to look at when we look at lobola and reviewing it. And some of the important questions that I think are important for me when I was asking the questions was that there are two. And the first one was that which is the most important part of the whole lobola process, because it's a process. So which is the important part? So I was told that there are two parts to the lobola. Sometimes it can be one main thing. So you find that they bring, like, they knock. In my language, we call it rukokota, you know, just to knock, to say, you know what, I've seen a flower in your home and I would like to pick it up, but I don't have enough money yet. So it's just to introduce. So the second part would be the full thing where you're bringing in the cows. And I was told that the most important part is to slaughter. So that is where the ancestors get to be, you know, to be in connection with each other, or get to be introduced to each other. So that is the most important part, which is slaughtering. And then one other question that I usually ask would be, why was it that men were the only ones who are allowed to be part of the Lobola negotiations? And that question, I never got an answer to it. And I can see that like times have changed, and I'm quite happy that times have changed, and now we are able to see women being part of the negotiations. And the reason why I'm happy is because back then parents would struggle to find someone, a man particularly, to be part of the negotiations. You find that you have to find an uncle who doesn't even know you as someone who is about to be Lobola. So when you get there and negotiate, what are you negotiating? Because you don't even know me, you know. So I think it's quite good that there's been some sort of like a change in this concept. So yeah, I think that's just the background that I like to give.
Listen, you've already started to bring to the fore very important questions, but some of them that I've just caught on is to say that if the intention was for a man to show the worth, and these days we have women doing, the same level of jobs or even better at times, then is that still relevant? Then we need to question that, obviously. And then you
Yeah.
bring another point of this patriarchal society that is we are embedded in, and you're raising issues around single mothers that raise their children, and one day when they are giving their hand in marriage, then now they are forced to look for an uncle that does not exist. So those are really pertinent questions that we should be interrogating and thinking about and questioning. And yeah, as young people, we are best suited to do that, right? Right. Before we continue, I just want to recognize Anele. Thank you very much. We see you. We see you. We see you. Untiga, we recognize you. We see you. We see you. We see you. Thank you so very much for joining us. Uma, I believe that you are a Xhosa man, right? Am I right? I was just trying to read in from your name.
I'm an African man, yes.
African Xhosa man. All right, great. Okay, great. I'm interested to know because obviously I know where you're coming from. There's also a deep understanding and gravitating towards culture. What's your take? You've heard what Katleko has said, the background that she's setting. What kind of background are you? What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. Freddie, can you hear me though?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Perfectly. So
No, of course. Again, as the other colleagues of mine have said, I'm very grateful to be invited, and I'm happy to actually speak on a platform much bigger about this topic, because it's a topic that's very close to my heart. I'm unfortunately or fortunately one of those culturalist guys. So yeah. And as Kat has said, this is one of the topics I've always, been very interested in. I debate about it almost all the time. So yeah, to get into the topic, of course, the topic itself, it sort of suggests that there's also a question of time insofar as this conversation is concerned. And what that sort of triggered me to think about was also perhaps before we can answer the question of whether or not Lobola is still relevant today, perhaps we need to think Uguti in whose time. By that, I simply mean Uguti, we have to first appreciate that our understanding of time as Africans versus that of Europeans is slightly different, if not very different. This is because Europeans see time or conceive of time in a very linear way. So it's moving from A to Z, from 1 to infinity or whatever. Their time sort of moves in such a fashion that the past is in the past, as Prof. Tepo Madlungos would say, for example, in his work. So we as Africans, we understand of time in sort of a cyclical way, almost like the waves in the sea. You can't say whether or not you've been hit by the same wave or whether it's different waves, because you can't separate the water from the water in the ocean, if you get what I mean. So basically, then the question of whether Lobola is relevant or not also requires us to wonder and ask ourselves, which time are we using to answer or to understand that very question, or that question of the relevance of Lobola. So for me, I choose to understand it from an African perspective, because for us, we don't see it, or we don't see our cultures as things that are merely in the past. because they are spiritual first and foremost, because we understand people to be spiritual beings in the very first place. So the process of joining then families is a spiritual process itself. Hence, Lobola itself being a part of that whole process is a very spiritual process. So it's very hard then to say whether or not it's still relevant or whether or not it's something of the past, because we continue to be spiritual beings and we continue to then perform these cultures or these customs from a spiritual perspective as well. So it's not just a culture that is outside of spirituality for us. So that is the first point I'm maybe going to get into much later on. But I just wanted to, again, to clarify that it is, from my understanding, of course, Ilobola is mainly a part of a bigger process or of a larger process of the process of marriage in and of itself, the process of joining the families. It's one of the key things that are important, but it's not the only one. So when we understand it, again, we don't need to see it in isolation from the larger process itself. So yeah, I think the other point, of course, is what does it mean? There's a point I think I wanted to sort of speak to that also Kat has raised, Wuti. Why do we use cows, for example? Well, with my understanding of that is, you see, before, let's say before colonization, but it still happens in some places, in some parts of the country and parts of Africa, where ubhlant or isbaya or the crop, that is where we would bury the fathers of the home, especially kings. In some places, they would bury them in the kraal. And that made then the kraal a very spiritual place. It still is. When, for example, we come from the mountain, Tina, that's when we are basically first taken as a guy or as an initiate coming from the mountain. The first place you go to is the kraal at home. And you are introduced to your ancestors. That's where they slaughter everything for you. So it's a very spiritual place. So that is why then the issue of cows was not just an issue of, okay, this is basically the form of currency we have. It was also a thing of those cows live and are basically always in connection with the ancestors of this home, because they live in that kraal for the most part, or at least when they are in the home. So when you're taking those cows, then you would be taking them together with the spirits of those ancestors who have been buried or who reside in that kraal. So when you're taking them then to this woman's home that you are lobolaring, if I can put it in that way, at least we are young people, so we can slang again there. So, so when you then take these cows to this woman's home, you are not just taking the cows as in the physical creature, the beast on its own. You are also carrying the ancestors of your family as the husband or as the husband to be. And that is why then the cows themselves were important. But again, we'll go into that much later. Then the last point maybe is also what Kat spoke about, is the issue of, does the lobola signify to the family of the woman, Uguti, I can take care of this woman that I wish to marry? Is that something I'm trying to demonstrate by showing the amount of cows I have or the amount of money I have in today's time? Well, my understanding is that that is not the case, because well, women as well, when you get married, the woman usually comes, or at least in ancient times, she will be brought into my household when the marriage is towards conclusion, with cows from her own household that belong strictly to her. They're not even my property, though we are married. They are cows that her family gives to her and say, this, you are going to take care of your children with these cows. You're going to milk from these cows to feed your children when you eventually have children. At some point, you're going to take even the very skin or the leather from these cows to create blankets for your children and for yourself. So that is then, it then sort of disqualifies this idea that when I lobola a woman, I'm demonstrating that I can take care of her. Because when she's brought into my family, her family brings her with stuff from their own household to show that she doesn't need to be taken care of, or to also disqualify this idea that my lobolaring her is me basically buying her into marriage, or that her family is selling her into a marriage. So I think I'm going to stop there for now, and obviously the conversation will flow, and I'll speak to some of the points I've made, and maybe others that will come to my mind as we go on. Thank you.
You see, you Thank you very much. And I'm giving you enough time because there's a lot of things to try and, dig deep into. And you bring out the spiritual aspect, which is very important because initially I went through the process as well. I never got to think about it that way. But obviously, questions are also being raised around that subject of spirituality. And Godfrey, I'm going to hit you with this one because I know you're the right person for this one. Because the question has already come. I'm just trying to look at the top to see. Wonder Boy, he says, why do Christians take part in Lobola if the main purpose was to join ancestral families? So, Godfrey, I'm hitting you with this one because I think you're well suited for that. And we know that this was a blow up subject on Twitter the past few days and, few weeks, but it actually went on for an extended period of time. So let's get into that a little deeper and see where we get.
Okay, so I'll try break it down in a simple also, but also just try to be concise as well about it. I think when we bring in the spiritual side of things, or even, and with spiritual we can bring in different religions, and if we're talking to Christians, I think that's where I would like to speak from because I'm a Christian, or at least I identify with Christianity. The Bible comes into the picture, and so I want to highlight something that I've learned about reading the Bible and interpreting it as applicable to your life. So when you read the Bible, there are two main approaches to reading the Bible. You will identify something that is either descriptive or prescriptive. So if it's descriptive, it just narrates an event. This is what happened in the Bible. It may not need to prescribe action, right?
Okay.
So just try to understand that. So from a Christian's point of view, we come across Lobola, if it's put in an African sense, or bride price or dowry in the Old Testament at the beginning. So you can read about it I would say it was written in a descriptive manner, i.e., this is what happened. This is what Abraham did. This is what Jacob did. This is what Isaac did. I don't think it's prescriptive. When I say, I'm not saying it's prescriptive, I'm not saying because Abraham did this, every man must do this. Because then that's what would prescribe each man to do before he marries a woman. Do you guys catch what I'm saying? So,
Sure.
In the light of that, from a Christian point of view, when people say, why are Christians exercising or practicing Lobola, we can then ask, is each family approaching this from a descriptive point of view or prescriptive point of view? And honestly, each to his own, and you can do whatever you want. I think what then becomes a concern is the repercussions of each action, because there are consequences to all our choices. So if it becomes spiritual, it's tricky. And my thing is that if it's spiritual, I don't see where money has to be involved, right? Because also we can't be oblivious, or we can't ignore the aspect of monetary things or monetary value in this whole process, because something is paid or something, there's an exchange of sorts. So I would say then, if it really is about bringing families together, honestly, that's just a matter of time. That's just a matter of intentionality. That's just a matter of process that is assigned and designed to bring people together. Again, not a single rand needs to be paid for that. It just means spending time together. If it's about bringing families together, you could pray together if you're Christians, or if you identify with Christianity. You could have a braai. You could, So I think, yeah. And also the last thing, what Wonder Boy said about, was it Wonder Boy? What Wonder Boy highlighted about ancestors. Again, guys, to be honest, when we start talking about ancestral what in the Christian space, it is tricky. I think we can read this from like Isaiah, and a lot of the prophets highlight this, where the thing about ancestral communication or interaction, it is tricky. Like we Christianity is about life. It's about people that are alive, and it can be alive spiritually, it can be alive actually in actuality. And so the thing about ancestors, as far as I know, these are people that have died, right? And so what does it mean to be communicating with ancestors? Like, what does it mean in the spiritual sense of it? What does it mean? Like, where are they with these ancestors? Like,
where are they? I'm going to hold you on that note. Where are they? I'm going to hold you on that note. So it's there's a lot of issues that are coming up, and I'm struggling on which one to pick up on. But just to add on as well, if I can just add on, because we note that, especially when you talk about Christians, because the question is to say, why are Christians practicing it? But it's also not new to Christianity, because if you, as you are saying, if we look at Jacob, he had to work because he wanted Rachel. He had to work for 7 years only to be given Leah, and then put in more work in order to be given. So there's this issue of value, right? And that's what I think Katleko mentioned earlier on, this issue of value. So you're working for it, or whether it's money that you're giving, but there is a subject of value. My question to you, Katleko, are we selling our daughters? Or should I wait a little bit and just come to you, Godfrey, because I see your hand was up. Whilst Katleko, you're thinking about that.
Okay, yeah, and I wanted to add that, because if we talk about value, I think the pressing aspect of value is who is determining that value, who is governing that value. So a lot of the times we've seen from a patriarchal point of view, it's a man or the men who determine value. And with today, again, relevance, today, are women prepared to be evaluated like that, or valued like that, or undervalued like that for all we know? So so I think it's that thing of who is governing this process. And my last thing there, just before Kat comes in, is because there's another aspect of that prescriptive aspect. Do we say then, is there somewhere where it's almost establishes that Lobola is a prerequisite to bring man and woman together, or two people together? Is it a prerequisite? Because then if it is, then that's another chat. If it isn't, then I don't know why we need to argue about it all the time.
Good point. Katlego, are we selling our daughters? And I'm just going to say, because I'm the only one that is married here of all of us, one greatest lesson that I've learned, and this is now a lesson that I'm also giving to our viewers, this is free of charge, especially the males. I'm going to say this once. I was taught when I was getting married that don't look at the price. You can never, you see, this woman that you're getting, she is priceless. You cannot put a price tag onto her. She is priceless, because if you look at it and try to quantify and say in terms of money, how much does she cost? You can never ever do that. So she's priceless. Don't look at the price, look at the reason, which is uniting families. But my question to you, Katleko, is to say, are we selling our daughters, especially if we look at that market principles can now be applied? If she has a master's degree, she goes up. If she's got a PhD, the price definitely is going to skyrocket. So what are your thoughts when it comes to that?
Thank you very much for that question. I was interested actually in commenting about the Christianity one, but I think that is a topic that
Go ahead.
No. I think it's going to take us like a very long while. So it's better if you have another session that will focus on, yeah. But anyway, like I said before, I personally think I'm priceless, as you said. I don't think even a million rand or however much is enough for me, because, like, yeah, I think I'm priceless. So I just think we have lost the main importance of Lobola, and now we are capitalizing the whole thing. So there's greed that is taking place there. Like you said, now we are being charged looking at education, looking at how many kids do you have, and all of that, which I think it's quite unfair, because that is not the whole point. And I think also sometimes I think that that is the main reason why maybe in most Black traditional or cultural families we don't get married as much, because we know um at Katla's place they're expecting this much, or when I want to get married to that girl they're expecting this much, when you don't have that much, you know. So I think that's one of the things that is stopping us, especially Black people, from getting married or from getting lobola, because of the prices that are being charged. And if we can look at other example, like other cultures they don't even have lobola for their own reasons. And like I said, I wanted to identify the most important part of the lobola, which when I've inquired about it, I was told that it's the slaughtering of the cow, or it's when the cows are being brought, because that's where the families are going to be united. That's where the ancestors are also going to be united. So it looks like the most important part is slaughtering the cow. So this thing of having to charge too much money, and it's not really that important, because like what is it doing? You're just gonna be giving my mom money to say thank you for raising this woman for me, and but the question that always came to me was, since times have changed, how is my family, or how am I thanking the groom's family for raising this man, this respectful man, and all of that? So for me, it has always been like a two-way thing, because now times have really changed. Now I can even marry myself because maybe my husband cannot afford. So what is the whole point now? Because if I'm able to take out money to say, okay, baby, here, please marry me because they want this much, what is the whole point? So I think the whole lobola thing is losing its importance, or yeah, that important, like that essence of lobola is being lost somewhere in between the monies. So I think we really need to look back and look at the important part of lobola. So yeah.
I am just going to take this opportunity to just recognize some of our viewers here. Thank you so very much for being loyal. Please do keep on sharing. If there is a friend that is not yet here, please do type in their name. And of course, today we are discussing lobola, the subject of lobola, reviewing it, checking relevance here and there, etc. Advocate Owen Magocha coming in and saying lobola's relevance is in the symbolic, not necessarily in the form of amount. It's representative of commitment. So there's an issue of commitment coming out there to say, I'm not just going to take your daughter and going to have their way and do, you know, and then just check it out. Because again, I think there's an interesting point coming out there, because we've seen, especially in our culture, people that then live together without getting married, because there's not that really commitment. Sometimes it ends in tears, as this generation says. I'm not saying that when you get married sometimes it doesn't end in tears. I'm just saying, just throwing that out there. So it is representation of commitment and forming relationships. Leonard Musore saying, watching from Grahamstown, Eastern Cape, we see you. Thank you very much. Mela uzanayo kahle Cuma. That was for you. Unsika saying it's part of a bigger process, being because lobola from a spiritual perspective is to unite two ancestral lineages into one. So I think also agreeing with what Tuma was saying, this is why it is key to know who you are with respect to your surname, Isituko. I think that's totem. But then she ends by saying, what a great discussion. I'm going to be picking on the questions as we go on. Interesting points that are coming out. Kuma, I just want to come to you and ask this question and say, okay, we have this subject and we are saying that lobola then is passed to us from generation to generation. And if we look at you mentioned the issues of time frame, and we are saying that in Stone Age, for example, I think I read that they used to, if you have a whore, Godfrey, I think this is from the Shona culture, you could go with your whore and get married using your, I think they have a different name for it, the thing that you use for cultivating. I think they have a different name for it here in South Africa. I just realized when I went to a shop looking for it. So that's what they used to do. But over time, we've seen cows come into the picture. Now we see money coming into the picture. My question then is, who are the custodians of this practice? I think that's a very important question, because if I wake up today, or if this generation wakes up today and say, this is how we're going to do it, we are just going to, as Godfrey was saying, just pray and unite the families, then so be it. So who are the custodians of this practice? How do we ensure that it's not corruptible, that it remains true to what it was and what it should be?
No, thanks for the question. Maybe my answer is going to be a bit complicated, but I'm going to try and make it uncomplicated, at least for everyone to get the gist of what I'm trying to say. So, one, it obviously, as someone has said, it requires us to first and foremost understand who we are and therefore why we are doing it. Because you see, the people about Lobolayo, we singabantu, at least from what I was taught. So I don't know those who pay dowry or who actually pay, because for us, Lobola is not to pay. So the diction is also different. The language we use is different as well. So it's very important then to understand who are we as we engage with Lobola, because maybe some people are not supposed to Lobola because it's not part of their culture. It's not part of who they are. If I was raised by my parents and we're raised to pray when we wake up in the morning before we start our day, then that's part of who I am, because that's what we do at home. I'm not going to expect my neighbors to do the same in their house, because that's not how they do things. It's not part of their identity or their way of doing things. So Uglobola is not, even though there may be similarities in other cultures and so on and so on, but for Abantu specifically, or let me say for Abangoni, because another misconception is that we are Nguni people. I've even heard ministers say, yeah, we are Nguni tribes. We are Abangoni, those who do not dwell into sin. So for those people, or for those families or clans who come from Abangoni, to not Lobola is to dwell in sin. Kuyafana no keep it. To, I don't know what you call it in English. Maybe you can assist me there. So for us, then it always remains relevant, because it's part of how we do things as Abangoni. Because it's this, if we do anything outside of that, Kiafana no Kipita, it's like going to just take a woman and stay with her, because that's not how we do things. So it's really a family thing, but obviously a very big family within the African continent. It may not be everyone's family, everyone's way of doing things in Africa, but for Abangoni, for Abantu, that is what we do. So the thing then is also a question of why money. And I think I just want to respond to that quickly or briefly, because you see, we are right now a generation that is basically victims of war, at least in the South African context, if not the whole of Africa. Those wars, if you read the works of Abo Nogaitobi, for example, and Abo Mamunosipho Macheke, Mamutisani, and others, they basically tell you in detail the mess that was done by the 100 years of war, for example, within the what is now the Eastern Cape. Obviously, didn't include Amaxhosa alone, many other nations who were moving within this area. That is important, because how we came to use money for us as Amaxhosa and other people, other nations around us in South Africa, is exactly because of those wars, because we lost a lot of cows, a lot of everything, land and everything else. And that is why we resorted or ended up using money rather, because that was the currency that was available. So the transition is not a matter of cultures having evolved. It's a cultures who are, it's basically people who are trying to survive, or who are on survival mode, if I can put it like that. Because imagine a situation where cows have been taken, land has been taken, and now you find yourself maybe 100 years later living in a township. You don't have land to keep the cattle. You don't have a kraal in the first place. So this whole idea of moving my ancestors with the cow to Katlego's house, for example, and Katlego stays in a suburb, let's say. These places don't have kraals, both of them, because we've lost the land. So we are limited to these spaces, to these few, I don't know, it's less than a hectare in most cases. We're in squatter camps. Where are you going to get a kraal there? Where do your ancestors reside there? You don't bury your ancestors in the kraal, you bury them in the cemetery, for example. So with losing land and losing cattle in those wars, we lost a lot of these things. And you find that when we use money, it's literally a thing of patching, because there's so much that we've lost, and we are just trying to patch and get it over and done with. But we're messing up a lot of things in the process. And so for me, even the issue of this idea that no, but time has moved on, cultures evolve. Our cultures did not really get a chance to evolve, if we're being fair. They were disrupted, they were messed up, and we are literally victims of war right now, because even the laws that we have do not try to give us back our dignity. We don't have a post-conquest constitution, for example, in South Africa. We have a very liberal constitution that speaks nothing to really our cultures and all those things. So I think I'm going to leave it there for now, and then
No matter, I'm saying I think it all started going south after money instead of cattle popped in. So sharing exactly, the same sentiments. But I think you bring in an angle that I myself, I'm amazed I'd never thought about, to say, okay, now we are living in a township, maybe it's 100 square meter, I don't know, or 200 square meters. There's no space to be keeping those kettles. So we then try to find an alternative, or just to patch, so that we can continue practicing what we believe in. Very, very insightful. Are there any comments, Godfrey, Katlego, on that note, to say who are the custodians?
Yeah.
Can I go?
Level. Yeah.
Katlego, go. It's fine.
I think for me, I think I'll always go to the point of which is the important part during this whole Lobola proceedings. Whether we change with money and but which is the important part. And for me, in my culture, splitting blood or slaughtering signifies that you are communicating with the ancestors, or like that's your communication to the ancestors. So I will always go to that point of which is the important part. So if we are changing and accepting money now, how do we communicate to our ancestors using that money? How do we connect our ancestors using that money? Because now it's fair to say, okay, buy 2 cows, because we know what those cows are going to be used for, So now, like, I'm just not agreeing with that point of saying we have resorted to money because that is what is available, and not using cows anymore, because I believe that getting cows or slaughtering cows is the most important part of Lobola negotiations. Rather, we buy cows, slaughter them, and not pay any money, because the most important part is to connect the families through blood, or to connect with the ancestors through shedding blood. So I don't know. I think if we're able to take out the most important part of the Lobola negotiations, then we can be able to, I don't know, man, to continue, or to sort of like make the whole Lobola proceedings in a way that it will suit our current times, but not losing that important factor that has always come up with Lobola negotiations. So
I can
I'm
I
coming,
add that? I'm
coming to you, Godfrey. I'm
okay.
coming to you, Godfrey. And perhaps this is a question for you, Godfrey, because it's a little bit different. I mean, if you think about it in the Shona culture, and also, we can't run away. I think Tuma is saying cultures were disrupted. He's calling it disruption. Some people call it evolution, right? That they're evolving. And you'd see that in the Shona culture, actually, those cows sometimes are even paid in cash. So you say, yes, there's a cow, but you symbolize it in cash. So there's actually no blood being spilled. So then also it's a question of difference in culture. But I just wanted to hear your response to that, Godfrey.
On the response to that aspect of Lobola.
So the response to that aspect of saying that, which are then the most important parts? Are these parts the same?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this goes, I think answering this question it can't be a universal thing. The fact that if we say this is what Lobola is, there isn't an answer that is accepted globally or universally. Because we can say this is what Lobola is to the Zulus. This is what Lobola is to the Xhosas. This is what Lobola is to the Shona. So already on that front, we can't uh, impose the definition on everyone, right? So we need to be aware that if I'm going to marry a Xhosa woman, I need to understand how the Xhosas do Lobola. If I'm going to marry a Zulu woman, yeah, you know what I mean? So just at least with the definition, we can't rest on one. Because now, yeah, so just what it is, because there's what it is, then there's what it is about, and what the purpose that it serves. So let's just be on the same page about that. So I think then, at least from my point of view, if we're looking at it from I think I've sort of touched on what Lobola can look like to a Christian. But then again, with the Christianity, you have what Lobola can look like to a Presbyterian, to a Methodist, to an Anglican. So it's very, very dynamic, right? And so I think when we say bringing families together, the important thing then, and I want to get to the second part of your question, what is actually important? I believe that agreement is the most important thing. Agreement, what it looks like, because agreement, I value agreement a lot, especially from a biblical point of view. The word says, how can two walk together unless they agree? So how can two families work together unless they agree? And I think that's the importance of negotiation, right? The negotiation process, when you need to agree on a figure. That is not. But I'm emphasizing agreement, right? If we come together and we say, there's the groom's family, which is Shona, there's the bride's family, which is Swati, there needs to be agreement of how we're going to join these families together. So the second part of the question is, what is actually important in this whole process? We're trying to bring families together. We're trying to create agreement and alignment. We are trying to release our children in faith and support them. I think those are the three main things when families are coming together. This whole thing of bringing families together, we want to assure you that your daughter's going to be safe and fine with us. We want to assure you that your son is going to be safe and fine. Because there's of people like to think of it even in a romantic sense, that it's us against the world, it's only you and I against them. But no, families are coming together, it's beyond you. So we need to be aware of that. So now I think then with me, if just on that, the third part, and that's my last part, if we're saying we want to bring families together, we want to cultivate rapport, we want to present security, the question is, how do we do that? And I really believe that there's a wide array of doing all those things. And that's why I try to say to you, Kuti, or to those that are watching, that if we're truly saying we want to unite families, then we don't need to see transactions. We really don't. It's about relationships. And I'm only saying this not because I'm against Lobola, but just to present it as a point of awareness that
it's 19 hours.
If we're saying we want to bring families together, we don't need transactions, right? Think of it this way. If you're trying to close a deal with a prospective client, you don't have to buy them anything or buy their loyalty. You just need to spend time with them and get to know them, what they're about. That means going for golf with them, taking them out on lunch, whatever. You can do something, but you don't have to actually buy them. So that's what I'm saying. And then also, if it's a thing about security, this is the last thing. If it's a thing about security, because now security comes in the form of, will you be able to take care of my daughter, or will my daughter be in good hands in this homestead? Katlego highlighted something very key. It's no longer the man's responsibility to take care of a woman, because women can actually take care of themselves. So we can actually disqualify that point, in a sense. Of course, certain households it differs, because not every woman is working and not every woman is capable of taking care of herself. But the whole premise was that at that time, men were the ones who worked, men were the ones who earned, men were the ones who had the economical and power dynamic in the household. So it made sense. Yeah. It's like about dates. If we say men should pay for dates, it made sense 100 years ago, because men worked, men had money. So of course.
Yeah.
But now, but that's not the chat today. That's not the chat today.
I'm going to challenge you on that one and hold you, because I see time is what is really what we're really chasing, and say that this issue of men working, and it only started during colonialism when jobs were created. But if you go back to hunting and gathering, men were hunting, women were gathering, which means they were also bringing something to the table. So it's
yeah. So there's the last thing. So it's just on the security thing. I've heard people say this, and this is quite unfortunate. If we overvalue the importance of money in bringing families together, I feel like a lot of the times that's when we see abuse arising. So everyone is concerned about this person's financial fitness and health. Does he have a job? Does he make money? And all of that stuff, right? Because you're concerned about the lobola, but you're not concerned about whether he's emotionally stable. You're not concerned about whether he is in good state psychologically, because now he can be fit financially and be able to take care of your daughter, but he's emotionally unavailable. He is, and I'm saying he or she, but he, because predominantly men are the ones who would be taking the woman's hand. So I'm just saying, let's prize balance. Let's prize what is important in the light of bringing families together, because we really need to think of that prerequisite aspect. Can we say these two cannot be joined together without money being exchanged? And I'm like, guys,
a response to you transaction really, but zongo now kusiya something, you have to leave something.
I've got a point on that, and I'll add it later if it's possible.
Yeah, I'm going to put a hold on you there, right there, and say you are raising very, very important things. And I love that we have a diverse panel today, because the views are different, and that's the nature of Lobola itself. It's diverse. It's not the same. And I love that about it. I think there was an interesting point that I was reading. I'm just trying to go back to it. Oh boy, yo, Ramkos is the surname. I'm just struggling a little bit with pronouncing that. He says, I'm not really sold. Livestock was used to trade in the olden days. Today we use money, and tomorrow will be digital currencies. So there's this aspect of things constantly changing and us having to catch up with what's happening in the world. But let me leave that as a question. Daniel Spanda says that that's a fair point. If coming together is the point, then there needs to be no transaction. So agreeing with you there. But I just want to, as we round this thing up, let me now then, this is a question, I know maybe Tuma, you're best suited for this question, but I'm going to start with you, Katlego. And it comes back to that issue of Christianity a little bit, so it gives you a chance to speak a little bit to that as well. Should non-cultural people, because we see spirituality, we see issues of ancestors continuously popping up, not only with Tuma, also in our comment section, should non-cultural people then be practicing Lobola? And I put that to you as a question.
That's a good question.
Katleko, you can go ahead, but then and Kuma will then also respond to that. Kat, can you hear us? Maybe Kuma, you can go ahead. I think she cannot hear us, or there's just a bit of network problems there.
I think she's
back.
You
hear? Yeah, can you hear us, Katleko?
And maybe just repeat the question just so she gets it.
Hello, can you hear us now, Katlego? No, it seems she is not hearing us. So whilst Katlego, can you hear us? Let me just unmute you. Can you hear us? Katlego? Okay. Kuma, can you go ahead whilst we try and see if Katlego can hear us?
Ready?
Yes, can you hear us?
I think my network is acting up now.
Okay, so we will go to you, Kuma, and then we will come back to you, my president.
I can't hear you properly because.
Okay, so go ahead, Kuma. I don't know if you want me to repeat that. Okay, she has just dropped.
Okay, yeah, I was hoping Kate was going to answer that first because maybe it would then the question would make sense. The reason why it doesn't make sense, I find it strange because there's an assumption that there are people who exist outside of culture, and that is if we understand culture as a way of life of a certain people
That's powerful.
passed down from generation to generation. And this is usually one of the problems I have with my Christian friends because they all usually read the Bible as though the people or the acts or the events that happen in the Bible or that we are being told of in the Bible happen outside of culture. And I'm like, but that was a culture of a certain people in a certain context. We were practicing our cultures in a different context. So yes, we should appreciate that. Well, it's just people who are operating in different contexts within different cultures. So of course, things are going to be different. So similarly, my answer to this question then is going to be structured along those lines. Firstly, acknowledging that, well, there's no one who lives outside of a culture, at least in my understanding of culture. And so what is important, therefore, is to understand, which according to my culture, as Godfrey hinted earlier, what does Lobola mean? And for me, to make it clear at least,
My battery.
it's also not a national thing. It's not a thing of this is what Xhosas do, this is what Zulus do, and so on and so on. Because also we are not these monolithic groups of people who do the same thing the same way. Because it's a family thing, like I said, it's an identity thing, it's a spiritual thing, it's a relationship I have with my forefathers and my foremothers, if you want to take it to that level of my feminist friends. But what is the point is simply that for Tina as abantu, at least let me generalize. But specifically with my family, the understanding is that when ulobola intombi, basically leyo ntombi iyafa, she dies as a girl in her household, and she resurrects or she's being resurrected as a wife in my household, right? So the idea is maybe let me try and break it down so maybe it makes a bit more sense. So for us, umfazi is not a woman who comes into womanhood by age, for example. So you are not a 19-year-old girl who then has a birthday and becomes a 20-year-old woman. Uba intombi even if you're 40. And the only way you're gonna stop being intombi is when we have lobolad you, or a certain family lobolas you, or takes lobola into your family. Then you die as a girl. Then you become umfazi. Whatever again the stages are, but basically you become umfazi, but you don't become umfazi by virtue of age as it is the case in the Western sense. So that is why then ukulobola is a spiritual thing more than it's a transactional thing, because there has to be that significance yokuthi usefile as a girl, she is now umfazi, and yeah, that's basically it. So one other point maybe is then the question of what are we negotiating when we negotiate then? If money or the transactional part of it is not very important. It goes again to the point that was raised earlier, I think by Godfrey as well as Uket. Well, the most important thing is obviously to bring these families together. And the most important thing, Lobola, is not the transaction, is not the cash in today's terms. But when we are negotiating, and this is what people are usually not aware of, I've obviously never negotiated myself, but I've lived with uncles and other family members who've been through the process. And basically, the idea is that when we are negotiating, we are trying to understand who these people are, where do they come from, what are their true intentions, and so on and so on. There's many other processes where that happens, but key amongst those, insofar as the cows are concerned, because people think we only discuss how many cows or how much money. The issue of cows was a matter of, firstly, we will discuss Uguti, umama wala ekhaya, the mother or the grandmother even, because we understand that the children don't just come from their mother and father, they come from the forefathers and those who have passed. So kuzoba nenkomo kagogo, yabo. Then kuzoba nenkomo yokwenza this and this, kube nenkomo yokwenza this and this, based on this family's traditions and customs. So sometimes the cows would go all the way into 20, sometimes in 10. Usually 10 is the average. But all of them have different specific reasons why they are being called for. Kube nenkomo yokuthi sibonga umama for this and this. This thing of saying I'm grateful to the parent is usually one cow. It's not like the whole thing is premised on, yeah, you raised her, you took her to university. All those things don't really matter much. Because in any case, you don't have to demonstrate anything to the parents, to the woman's family again. Because like I said, the woman comes with stuff from her own household that her parents give her to say, this is what we're giving you, so you can go and take care of yourself and your children wherever you are going. So what we negotiate there is a lot of other stuff. Uguti, for example, another critical thing is if I'm marrying a woman, the woman there, or the her family rather, must establish ukuthi my family or I or whoever from my family has never raped anyone, for example, or has never killed anyone, because you can't get married into a family enegazi ezandleni, or that has blood in its hands, or that has a case of rape, for example. That case won't be carried only by me, the rapist. It will also be carried by those who come from my family. So those are some of the things that are negotiated and in the so-called negotiations. It's not just about money, but I agree with my fellow panelists. The issue of money is really something to patch. Money for me is not spiritual insofar as the African sense is concerned, and should not then form part of a spiritual process such as Lobola. But like I said, we're victims of war. This is where we are. So yeah.
Thank you very much. You raised, and I'm going to actually raise a rhetoric question to you. And this is just a challenge because you just mentioned something that just resonated, and I just thought about this. When you say that when we are marrying her, that's when she becomes a wife, right? And I'm not saying that there's competition, but we've seen that there's actually psychological strain, because then as you go to 40, as you mentioned, then there is that psychological strain to say, will I then one day be a wife, or will I die in Tombi, as you mentioned? But let's just leave it at that. But these are some of the issues, again, that are creeping in and that have mental, can be attributed to, mental strain at some point. But Katlego, I note that your battery is low, and trust me, we're going towards the end, but I see comments coming in, some that are really, really interesting. I want to ask you the same question as a rhetoric. Should non-cultural people be practicing Lobola? And again, I say it is a chance, because the reason why I'm going back to this is that it's very topical, because they are cultural. Let me put non-cultural in quotes, because as Utuma has clarified, everyone has a culture. But should then they be practicing? Can I put that to you as a question?
Yeah.
To me.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm struggling with network, so you'll forgive me a bit. Okay, should non-cultural people practice Lobola? I don't know. What are you gonna be doing? Like, I don't know. I would pose back the question to you or to non-cultural people. When you're practicing Lobola, what are you signifying? Because these things come with sort of like a significance, or to, like Kuma said, it's an identity thing. So if you are non-cultural, then what are you doing with Lobola? What is the importance of you practicing Lobola? Like, what does it signify to you? So, like, it always goes back to what Kuma was saying, that it's a family thing, or it's a cultural thing. So if in your culture you practice Lobola, you practice it because of certain reasons. So if you are a non-cultural person and you're practicing Lobola, I don't know, maybe there could be reasons why you're doing that, but I don't want to speak for other people. But yeah, I would like to pose back the question to say, if you are non-cultural and you're practicing Lobola, what does that Lobola signify to you?
Yeah. PK, I think as much as I may be a non-cultural and again in course person, Lobola is not only about me and my partner, but families. So it makes sense to do it because it means something to the two families. So that is actually coming from that place where daughters might feel sometimes that I do not want to go through this process, or sons feel as if that they don't want to go this process. But I think it's a fair point that is being made there. Because of time, and I see people are saying we should have round two of this discussion, I
Def-
just want to go around the table and have your parting shots. Let me start with you, Godfrey. I'll come to you, Katleko, and I'll end with Kuma.
okay, thank you for that, brother. I think I think the whole Lobola process is it's probably a good thing. It started from a good place, I hope. And I think the unfortunate thing is that if you put anything in a flawed human's hands, things are bound to go southwest. Where we've seen the abuse of it, the practice, where people feel now they need to make the mkwenyana or the son-in-law to be suffer. I'm like, guys, are you really trying to join families or just trying to make this young man suffer? So yeah, I think we just need to go back to the roots. In any case, in any culture, why are we doing this? It really is
Mm,
important to determine why.
mm,
So yeah, if it's the thing about gratitude, this is my last thing. If it's the thing about gratitude, because for some people they say the whole Ebola thing is for the man's family or the man to express gratitude to the woman's family for raising this daughter and whatever. My thing is, if it's about gratitude, then let the person who is thanking govern how they're going to thank the other family.
yeah.
Like yeah, and so that's what someone said at the top. They could see "Unongosiaoka something. So that something, I should be able to determine this something is this. I'm thanking you. Don't tell me how I should thank you. I don't know if that's actually proper. Because some people say, if you want to thank us for raising this daughter, give us 120,000 rands, because that's what it sounds like. And I'm like, I feel like I can actually just say thank you. I don't need to pay anything to thank you. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, and then it's that thing where there's life after Lobola. That's the last thing. There's life after
Ah,
Lobola. That's very important. If you're going to now drain this man to show that he can take over, I don't get the logic. There's life after Lobola. These people are going to need to buy a house and live relatively well. And now, if you've milked this man, we want to fix him. We want to make him pay 40 million rands for our daughter because she's that important. Now they're going to be staying in a shack afterwards because no, we're satisfied that he's paid 200,000 rands. I don't get the logic. Like, let's think about the
mm,
life after Lobola, so that
mm,
your kids can be starting off, and your kids. I'm talking about your daughter who you're sending off to the new family, your son
mm,
who's starting a new family. Eish, man.
mm.
Yeah, guys. Like, if any money is exchanged, let's think about the day after.
Mm. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for that note. Let's go back to the roots. Let's think about life after Lobola. And
Mm,
I'm just picking on some comments because we never got to them. And the question is actually, is it a question of the bridal price, which is where the money is residing, or
mm,
Lobola, which is larger than, in my understanding, which is then larger. It's a process that is larger than the bridal price itself, but very, very important insights. I just want to pick up on this one again from Wonderboy before I come to you, Katleko. And Tuma, we do want to say bye to you. We want to see you. I think your video has been stuck for a while. So as we are preparing to come to you, we do want to say bye. Wonderboy says white weddings has never been an African culture, but it has been adopted by Africans. There is no law that prevents non-cultural people from engaging in lobola. In my thinking, I believe that each clan should accept their specific norms to them. In cases where there is different views on lobola based on various beliefs, only then can there be compromise. So again, um, an issue of coming to an understanding or agreement, if I may say. Katleko, your parting shots.
Thank you very much, Freddie. I think my battery is on 5% now. So after this, I'm just gonna leave you guys. Firstly, thank you very much for the invite. I'm very honored to be part of this great conversation. I've learned a lot. And my parting remarks would be the same as Godfrey's, to say that let's go back to our roots. And us going back to our roots doesn't mean we have to do everything that was done, before, but to just identify the most important thing of the whole process. And then from there, we can work it from there as long as we have retained that important part of Lobola. And I've always had the view that, you know what, if it comes to the issue of thanking parents for raising the other or, you know, such thing, we can always think of ways. If I would like to buy my groom's parents a beautiful car or a house, or my husband to be wants to buy a house or whatever for my parents, then okay, let's do that. But let's not be talking about putting a price on me as if you can put any price on me. So I think, yeah, we should go back to taking the important part of Lobola and then redefining it the way it suits our lifetime. So yeah, thank you very much for the engagement, and I'm gonna be leaving you guys because of network and battery. So do enjoy your evening.
Thanks,
Thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you for honoring our invitation. We will be chatting more. Before you go, please know that there is a comment. Apparently, there's a chairperson of the comment section, and they're saying that part 2 is definitely needed, but we will chat further. Kuma, over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me though? I heard you. I was stuck.
Yes, we can hear you, but the picture is still stuck, but I guess we can proceed.
Okay, thank you. No, I think for me, I'm just gonna make 3 simple points as my parting shots. So my one is, in summary, I'm gonna go back to the beginning. Marriage is a spiritual thing, where we bring two families together at a spiritual level first before you bring together these two individuals. Because for me, these two individuals are really like hooks that basically connect these two families. But the people who are getting married, right, in the actual sense of the word, is these two families just being hooked by two individuals from different families. So because of that, then it has to start at an ancestral level. And for me, I just need to clarify again, ancestors are not dead people, because Africans don't die, they transition by Allah again in the physical sense. But the spirit's transition is the body, is the overall that gets put underground, basically, that they were wearing in the form of the flesh, but the spirit transition. So Africans don't die. Hence, ancestors are a very much integral part of Ilobola. Number 2 is money. For me, doesn't qualify. Yes, we might have used Made out of wanting to continue with the thing in the absence of cows and land and so on. But for me, money in Africa is not spiritual. In fact, it has brought us problems more than solutions. So for me, money doesn't qualify in any form, and we should rather use other alternatives to then continue to Lobola as opposed to money. Number 3 is we really need to decolonize culture. But before we decolonize culture, we perhaps need to decolonize ourselves first, insofar as our identity is concerned, and really learn and try and relearn some of those things in trying to find ourselves. It's about finding African epistemologies that have been buried with the loss of land and with colonization and everything that came with it. It's about finding African knowledge systems through which we can understand ourselves. Because for me, the biggest challenge with Lobola is that we cannot understand Lobola through using English, for example. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be hard understanding Lobola from a Eurocentric perspective. You see, so you need African knowledge systems in order for you to be able to really get to the roots of what was behind this practice, what was behind this whole affair. So yeah, decolonize yourself. Dr. Prof. Kize, Nomalanga Mkize calls it ukufukuza, which is to try and find that information about who you are, about your culture, your roots in the context of a colonized world. So thank you very much for the invitation. Really looking forward to part 2. If there is going to be one, I would love to engage again. Thank you very much, and Kat as well.
Thank you. Very important things that are coming through. Again, I think before my president went away, she also said that going back to the roots, as Godfrey had said, and then says that looking for what is important, and you now call it, in the words of Prof. Mkize, ukufuguza, which is essentially decolonizing and searching, unlearning, relearning, and learning, where we are coming from, looking deep within and saying, who am I within a community? Who am I within a family space, within a society? Who am I? And finding your true identity. Thank you so very much to you, Godfrey, to you, Toma, to my president who has departed. I am looking forward to part two. Definitely, we should have this. Let's have a round table. I always said, as you said, Toma, in the beginning, to say we are having these chats on, on small tables with our friends, and there's been this big thing about saying, young people do not have tables. It's high time that we create these tables for ourselves and have these important discussions that affect and affect us. So I would like to thank you so very much for offering your time and expertise to be with us this evening. A very special thank you to you, our audiences, for being so nice today. You guys were commenting, asking the questions. I'm very sorry that we could not go through all questions, but definitely your engagements kept us going and got us thinking. I think when we think about part two, some of those insights that you are bringing to the fore will be what we will be discussing. Thank you so very much. Thank you to our sponsors, Biz Legal, and from us here, good night and thank you once again.
Amen.
Awesome.